glorious gamers out there. Welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerSToo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
Going very well, Mark. Good to see you again as ever. How's things?
Not bad. Lewis, our schedule's all over the fucking place right now. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we are a two-man operation here. If something goes wrong for one of us, it goes wrong for both of us. We're trying our damnedest, but let's immediately get this onto video games. What have you been playing this week, Lewis?
Well, Mark, last week when we didn't record, I did have a kind of a new announcement of a game that I'm playing, my follow-up to Elden Ring, I suppose.
Very good.
In the intervening week, I have now completed that game, so that was Stray.
Oh, nice, that's great.
Yeah, I increased my PS Plus subscription and got going with Stray, the new cat adventure game.
Of course, yeah.
Which means, we'll come on to what PS Plus means after this, but... Played through Stray, as you've probably heard before, it's only about 4 or 5 hours long unless you really want to go deep and kind of get to the platinum completion, but I didn't feel there was any need for that, to be totally honest. This game was good. I wasn't totally blown away by it. It didn't do anything that I was really stunned by, other than the kind of look of it and obviously the experience of playing as a little cat. I mean, just to go straight into that, one of the criticisms that I think that you had mentioned had come out of some of the reviews was around the platform, and I really didn't think that there was anything wrong with that. It played exactly as I think I would have wanted it to. I never found any real challenges with the motion. In fact, sometimes it became a little bit too automatic. It felt to me like you were kind of moving around almost without thinking about it at times. But the sort of free-flowing thing of the cat is limited. The jumping in particular is only available to you when you're prompted, so you can't just kind of leap around the level daft, just kind of...
I think that was the criticism, though, that it wasn't like free, and you were a cat, I mean, it sort of made sense that you could jump whenever you wanted, basically.
Sure.
But I understand for the purposes of a video game that might not necessarily be the right thing.
It's partly that, and it's also that a cat in reality wouldn't just leap about mad, I think is the thing. They move in a deliberate way, at least. So yeah, I just wanted to address that because that was one of the things going into it that I was a bit concerned about, having heard that feedback. To me, the weaknesses were any of the kind of combat or stealthy sections, which there's only a handful of in the game, but there's some like enemy types that you want to avoid, whether by kind of proper stealth action or by kind of running past them. It's two different enemy types that behave in different ways. I hated all that. I just wanted those sections over, as I often do when I'm playing games like this.
This is very combat-averse.
Yeah, I just can't be bothered with it, particularly when the rest of the game is very chill and very enjoyable, and you move around this city and this kind of wider world eventually. I won't say anything too spoilery, but that is, I think, quite exciting and quite interesting. Like there's a hidden lore here that you kind of unravel elements of that is, I think, quite interesting. You could base a whole series around it, although I don't really get the feeling that this is heading in that direction. And that side of it and the kind of puzzle elements and the exploration that gives you, I thought were really enjoyable, which just meant that anytime there was a kind of stressy combat or like enemy detection avoidance situation, I just couldn't be bothered with it. Story wise, it's pretty straightforward. It's more about the robots than the cat, as you might imagine. It's kind of about what has happened in their society, with, I think, a kind of hidden message around climate change, essentially, which is quite interesting. But like, as I say, there's nothing that this game's doing that you're like, oh, absolutely fantastic. This is like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10, I would say. It's kind of what we've said before about Game Pass games, ironically, that was Sony's first kind of native addition to the new PS Plus, that the kind of big launch, you can get this for free game, and it's like good. It's worth playing, definitely, and certainly if you're coming off the back of something like Elden Ring that you might have been playing for a while, it's a really short, sharp, sweet, nice game. But I don't think that you're going to really radically miss out on experience if you don't have PS Plus and you don't get around to it just now.
Fair enough, man. To be honest with you, I think that sort of sits where I was expecting it to be. It's a good game, it's worth playing, but it's not unmissable in any capacity, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. I'll probably get around to playing it at some point. I mean, you get to play as a cute little cat.
Exactly.
And it looks awesome, do you know what I mean? It looks like an interesting world and whatever, but I think that platforming thing just sort of rubbed people the wrong way a little bit, perhaps, and maybe they weren't quite as engaged in the story or whatever it was, but I think overall a lot of people are basically saying what you said, and that this is a good game and that you should go out and get it, particularly if it's free with your PlayStation Plus subscription, you know.
And what about you, Mark? What have you been playing?
Well, Lewis, I believe last time we spoke I was playing Portal. I have now finished Portal 1 and 2, and they are absolutely outstanding. They are incredibly, incredibly good. Now, I'm not going to waste everyone's time here by saying that one of the most universally beloved games ever is fantastic, particularly thinking about the second game, which is truly spectacular. But it is fantastic. It is really, really, really good indeed. I think that it 100% holds up as well. Playing it on the Steam Deck, like, you could have easily convinced me, if it didn't have quite so many loading screens, that this game came out last year. Do you know what I mean? In terms of gameplay and all that, like, it holds up 100%. It's an absolutely fantastic game. I am very, very, very stupid for not having played it sooner than now, Lewis.
I'm glad you finally have got around to it, though. It's an absolute stunner.
Yeah, it really is. The second one in particular, I mean, I can see why that is very beloved. Like, the first one is just a tech demo compared to that in a lot of ways. But holy shit, the second one just takes what was built as a base there and just takes it to the moon, quite literally. Butless. Then I moved on to playing Triangle Strategy, which in the year 2022, which is just turning into the year of many RPGs for me, it just seems to fit quite well, and it's something I've wanted to get around to for a while. I'm really enjoying the game. It's much more along the lines of Fire Emblem when it comes to these sort of turn-based strategy games, as opposed to like your XCOM or Gears Tactics or whatever, and that you actually spend quite a lot of time not in battles, which takes it down the road of Fire Emblem as opposed to like Gears Tactics or whatever. And the flip side of that, I suppose, is that you get given this incredibly huge Game of Thrones scale story with loads of factions and loads of characters, loads of interwoven relationships and all that, which is just the polar opposite of what Gears Tactics was doing. You know what I mean? It was like a few wee bits of story to get us from A to B here, but like, let's get back into the battles immediately, whereas this isn't like that. I have to say that I think that there could have been a better balance between these two things, because a lot of the time you're playing, you're actually just being fed dialogue. And that can come quite a lot of the time in just short cutscenes or maybe even longer cutscenes, but sometimes it does come when you're just exploring areas and you're just talking to a whole bunch of people and it's just like literally reading dialogue. And unlike Fire Emblem, when you weren't in battle, it felt as though there was a lot more engaging things to do rather than literally sitting and reading or just being spouted at. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there could have been a little bit of a better balance there. But in general, I think it's really good. Like I said, it's sort of scratching that Fire Emblem itch for me. The balance needs tweaked a little bit, in my opinion, but a good game, a very good game, and I'm very glad that I picked it up. It's going to take me a lot longer to finish than Stray, though, I can tell you that much.
How much have you played and how far in are you, do you think?
I'm maybe about 10 hours, say, and it's about 40 to finish it, so I'm like about a quarter of the way through. So it's not like crazy, although I think in post Elden Ring world, Lewis, we now just think 40 hours is just nothing in a game. Do you know what I mean? But 40 hours is still quite long. So, I mean, it'll take me a good couple of weeks to get through that. But I'm really enjoying it. Like, I'm enjoying it. It's quite low intensity in a lot of ways, do you know what I mean? Just because it's not action focused, it's strategy focused. So you're thinking quite a lot, but you're not actually having to do anything very quick. You know what I mean? which is quite nice, quite chill.
Is it difficult though? I mean, is there a challenge there?
Yeah, I mean, there is a challenge there. I mean, you can't fuck up. Like, if you fuck up too many times, like, it will kill you and you just need to start again. You know what I mean? I think I've only failed once, like outright failed, but I mean, there's been a couple of times where it's been closer than I would have liked, is what I would have said. And that is totally on me. Do you know what I mean? If you make the right moves at the right times, then you're good. You will definitely win. Yeah, exactly. But if you fuck up, it will punish you. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's good. It's good. No permadeath like Fire Emblem though, which is good. Which I sort of panicked about early doors. But yeah, it's good. It's great. As I said, it's really scratching that itch for me. And it's a different sort of type of strategy game than I was playing recently as well, because I thought maybe I'd overdone it by playing Gears Tactics and Kingdom Battle as well, and just being like too in that space. But actually, this is a totally different thing from both those games, really. Do you know what I mean? So it still feels fresh enough to me.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm glad you're playing it. I'm quite keen to hear more, because it was definitely, of all those types of games over the last few years, that's the one that I was the most likely to play, so I might get a wee look at it at some point.
Yeah, man, it's good. It's really, really good. As I said, you probably won't get a lot of what the game is about just by looking at a battle scene, because that's maybe only about a third of what the game actually is. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of story, and they are building this really rich, deep story where there's a lot going on. As I said, it's very Game of Thrones-esque. It's over a big area with a lot of different people involved, you know? It's quite interesting, I've got to say. I've not really dealt with a game with this many characters and this many different things happening for quite a while, I've got to say, so it's quite interesting, you know what I mean? It's usually just very one protagonist focused, but you're getting fed information from just so many different angles here. It's really good. It's really, really great. I just wish there was slightly more battles left. Slightly more battles would be good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to go on to the news. Alright, news item number 1. Bloomberg have reported that GTA 6 will take place in a city based on Miami and will feature a female protagonist. To me, this is clearly a throwback to Vice City, which was also based on Miami, just like GTA 5 was a throwback to San Andreas, which I think is very, very cool indeed, because they are, in my eyes anyway, the two best GTA games. The female protagonist, who is also a Latina, will be one of a pair of lead characters. The story will apparently take influence from the Bonnie and Clyde story, meaning obviously the other character will be a male protagonist. I think that sounds like a fucking great idea, frankly. It has been said as well that the devs are making a conscious effort not to quote-unquote punch down with the jokes that they make about marginalised communities, which is something I think that we can all safely say Rockstar have probably been guilty of in the past in the GTA games. Bloomberg have also reported that the single-player map would be updated over time, adding, quotes, new missions and cities on a regular basis, which leadership hopes will lead to less crunch during the game's final months. This obviously comes off the back of Rockstar wanting to change their culture in an attempt to curb some of the worst crunch conditions in the industry, it sounded like. That being said, apparently GTA 6 will also have the most interior locations of any GTA game, so it still seems like it's going to be a pretty big undertaking here. Now, obviously, this has got some blowback from certain sections of the internet due to the fact that they have a female Latina protagonist, which is obviously just fucking stupid, particularly because Miami is one of the few major cities in America where the Hispanic population is actually greater than both the black and white population, and this isn't even the first time the GTA series has had female protagonists. In fact, the first game, Lewis, had not one, not two, not even three, but 4 female protagonists, 2 of which at least were people of colour. It's just crazy the world that we live in right now, so obviously fuck all those people. But other than that, I think that this is sounding pretty cool. Like, this is the first solid, I feel anyway, of like information that we've got that I can be like, yeah, that's almost certainly probably true. Do you know what I mean? Like, sort of an information that we've got about the new GTA game, and it's sort of got me excited for it. Like, I think that those are all cool ideas and good things that they're doing.
Definitely, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's quite exciting to have, if not concrete details, then at least like wet cement details. You know, this feels like something that is definitely, it is real. Whether or not the game, as it finally releases, looks exactly like this, I don't think we've got too many reasons to doubt this information given who's reporting it. So I totally agree. Going back to Vice City, I mean, it feels quite obvious that they would do that next, but how you handle that transition when, like, not only was the location of the Vice City game so important, but the time that it was set in was so important to that location as well, right? And so,
sure, absolutely, yeah.
What do you do with that? Like, is it as a game set in present-day Miami that interesting? Possibly not, but maybe they set it, you know, in the early 2000s or in the 90s or something, you know, just setting it at a different time from the original game, but still kind of modernizing it a bit. Who knows how they'll handle that? But I agree, this kind of Bonnie and Clyde idea, you know, you can see how they could flesh that out into like a really full-scale narrative, which could be very exciting, but still leaves all the possibility there for like just building a criminal empire kind of thing, because you don't want to lose that side of the GTA. And it sounds like that's going to be the direction it all goes in again, given that they're doing this multi-city, massive, constantly evolving game. You know, it feels like they're definitely headed towards like GTA as a platform. There was rumours that this started out as GTA Americas is what it was being referred to internally, but that was kind of scaled back to make sure, it sounds like, to make sure that there wasn't crunch, or at least just, you know, really heavy development schedules. So that's great if Rockstar are moving in that direction. There's been a few other reports recently about a healthier culture emerging in Rockstar, so all good news, I think. I mean, let's hope that the game continues to develop well and we're not waiting another decade for this, because it does sound like a massive undertaking, but hopefully it's not too far out.
Yeah, I think that it's supposed to be sort of 2024, 2025, which I think tracks, to be honest. I think that sounds about right. I mean, it's going to be a huge undertaking no matter what. It's GTA, let's be honest here. But yeah, if they can rein in their enormous ideas of just making GTA America down to just one city, I think that's a pretty good start on reducing crunch. But like you said, if this is going to be adapted over time, different cities emerge, do you know what I mean? It sounds as if they're going to be doing single player content there as well, and it's not just going to be solely online focused, although undoubtedly that'll be a huge part of it, considering the success of GTA Online. But everything about what they've said about the story, about these characters, about the setting, I'm like, yeah, thumbs up, fully on board for that. Rockstar, keep going, thumbs up here. Alright, let's news item number 2. PlayStation and Nintendo have reported falling sales numbers in Q1 of this financial year. Now, I don't want to get into reading a whole bunch of figures off at you, but the sort of main stuff is PlayStation have reported a 30.5% decrease in operating income year over year, with Q1 sales down 11.7%. This was attributed to a decline in sales of both first and third party titles as well as third party DLC. However, the PlayStation 5 has now sold over 21.7 million units. Nintendo have reported a decrease in both hardware sales, which is down 22.9% year on year, and a decrease in software sales as well, which is down 8.6%. However, the Switch has now sold over 111 million units, which puts it very much within touching distance of the PlayStation 4 list, and I think it will overtake that quite soon. Both companies have blamed the ongoing chip shortage, which is continuing to affect manufacturing, of course. The market is also returning to the post-pandemic boom conditions, and apparently the Japanese yen is also quite weak at the moment, which will be affecting both companies. I know this got a wee bit of fanboyism on Twitter and whatever, suggesting that this, well, particularly around PlayStation, like this was the imminent downfall of PlayStation. However, on top of those reasons that they've already given, we're still dealing with a global pandemic. There is a global cost of living crisis happening right now, spurred on by the war in Ukraine. And in this financial year at some point, I'm willing to bet quite a lot of money that we're going to see another global recession as well. So if those numbers were pointing anywhere apart from down, I would be shocked, frankly. And I have to say, like, if Xbox were still interested in selling new games and not selling new subscriptions, and they gave out this sort of information, I reckon that the numbers would be exactly the same for them as well. And that's no shade at anyone. That's just the global situation right now, you know. What do you think of this? Do you think there's anything to worry about here?
Nothing to worry about in regards to video games, I don't think. I mean, there's quite a lot of alarming real-world shit going on behind the scenes there. But no, I think you're right in what you say, that this isn't... It's not about any of these platform holders. It's not about these console manufacturers. In reality, this is just a symptom of where we're at just now. And I think actually heading amongst that point about sort of return to quote-unquote normal life post-pandemic, quote-unquote post-pandemic, that
pandemic that's still very much going on.
Yeah, exactly. You can't possibly expect that interest in games would sustain the way it was in 2020 and 2021 given the lockdowns that we had then, right? Just like, if you think about the start of the pandemic and the moment that like Animal Crossing had, that is just not going to happen in the same volume in a normal year when people have got other stuff going on in their life and they go outside. So, you know, on top of global recession, on top of chip shortages and all that stuff, it's been a perfect storm for the video game industry in a lot of ways, but I don't think we've got anything to be alarmed about here. I just hope it doesn't lead to other consequences for gamers, like higher prices for consoles or whatever. You know, there was the news just the other week about Meta putting up the cost of the Quest. There's something in the air right now that seems to always mean that ordinary people are getting squeezed for cash, so let's just hope that doesn't manifest itself here.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is very true. That's the way that these things go, unfortunately. But yeah, let's hope that it doesn't come to that. I know that PlayStation refused to be pinned down on that specifically fairly recently about the price of the PS5, but I mean, we'll see what's happening, but just be sensible about your money. Just remember that gaming's a hobby and it's supposed to be fun, and if you are struggling to pay your bills because you bought a video game, that's not fun, ladies and gentlemen. This is a luxury, and it's a great luxury that we are all privileged to be a part of, but in reality, there's more important things going on in the world, and if prices are getting hiked up, your PlayStation games are probably not the thing to be worrying about, you know? Alright, news item number 3. Sony have said that Xbox owning Call of Duty could influence users' console choice. And I mean, the phrase "no shit Sherlock" comes to mind there, because that's why Xbox paid nearly $70 billion for them. Sony were responding to a questionnaire from the Brazilian Trade Commission, who were asking about the Xbox and Activision deal. Apparently, they just send these questionnaires out to third parties in the industry so that they can get their side of things, so that that can be contrasted to what Xbox and Activision are telling them. This is what Sony said while answering that questionnaire, as transcribed by VGC. This is a wee bit of a long one, but it's the whole of the story, and frankly, it saves me paraphrasing all their words, Lewis.
So I have to...
No, so you need to read it, yeah. You need to read it verbatim. That's what you need.
According to a 2019 study, the importance of Call of Duty to entertainment in general is indescribable. The brand was the only video game IP to break into the top 10 of all entertainment brands among fans, joining powerhouses such as Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Call of Duty is so popular that it influences users' choice of console, and its community of loyal users is entrenched enough that even if a competitor had the budget to develop a similar product, it would not be able to rival it. Each annual Call of Duty release takes around 3 to 5 years to develop. As Activision releases one Call of Duty game per year, this equates to an annual investment of hundreds of millions of dollars. Approximately 1,200 people work on each version, and another 1,500 are involved in publishing and distribution. Thus, Call of Duty alone has more developers than most game companies employ across its entire development portfolio, including AAA studios. Also, given its plans to recruit 2,000 additional developers by 2021, Activision probably expects Call of Duty to become even more successful in the future. No other developer can devote the same level of resources and expertise in game development. Even if they could do that, Call of Duty is overly entrenched so that no rival, no matter how relevant they are, can catch up. It is synonymous with first-person shooter games and essentially defines that category. This is also demonstrated by player engagement on social media. Call of Duty has over 24 million followers on Facebook versus 7 million for Battlefield, and over 12 million followers on Instagram versus 2 million for Battlefield. Battlefield eating it hard there. To say the least, players would be unlikely to switch to alternative games, as they would lose that familiarity, those skills, and even the friends they made while playing the Call of Duty games. Even in weaker years like 2021, Call of Duty still managed to outperform most other games by a considerable margin. Call of Duty Vanguard in 2021, for example, was widely regarded as weaker than previous year's titles, but was still one of the best-selling games of 2021. In other words, even in a bad year, players remain loyal to the brand and continue to buy the game. Sony went on to note that Call of Duty has been the top-selling game for almost every year of the past decade, and for its genre is overwhelmingly the best-selling game.
So, Lewis, do you think PlayStation want to keep Call of Duty multi-platform?
I mean,
that's your fucking competitor saying that, man. Jesus Christ.
I know. If I'm Xbox, I am publishing that entire piece on a poster.
If I'm Phil Spencer, I've got that framed on my fucking wall.
That is incredible. And F in the chats for Battlefield there, which definitely.
I know, EA are like, fuck's sake, man. What are we doing? And all of this, Lewis, despite the fact that Activision players are actually dropping. They've dropped below 100 million for the first time since 2019, although I suspect that a lot of the reason for that is the same reasons that we were just talking about Sony and Nintendo, like losing sales is probably the same reason why there are less active players on Activision games. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, PlayStation think that Call of Duty is an enormously important game to them, and I imagine that they've been lobbying very hard to make sure that that game remains multi-platform. It is worth noting that at time of recording, and I say at time of recording because I know that the Xbox and Activision deal could close any day now, but at time of recording, Xbox are only contractually bound to release the next 3 Call of Duty games on PlayStation, which will be the upcoming Modern Warfare 2, which comes out later this year, then presumably Warzone 2, whenever that's due to come out. I can't remember if that's the end of this year or the beginning of next year, and whatever game comes out in 2024, because I believe they're skipping 2023. But after that, it's all up in the air as things stand. You know what I mean? They could just say, no, like, we're just going to publish this on PC and on Xbox, and PlayStation, you're just cut out of this, which, by the sounds of PlayStation's letter there, by the sounds of their answer to this questionnaire, that would be a big deal for them, like a really big deal for them. And also, just a wee tidbit from that as well. That was only an excerpt of the answer. I have to say there was a lot more that you could have read. But PlayStation also said that they believe Game Pass is harmful to consumers and traditional publishing, which I just thought was interesting that they have actually written that down somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And have actually said that. But yeah, the Call of Duty stuff, Liz, what are your thoughts here?
Well, it's no surprise that Sony are concerned about it.
Can I just say all of that is true. Everything that they said is true. It's just insane to hear them say it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's particularly there's kind of two lines that say, essentially, like, even if someone could spend the money to develop something similar to it, and no matter how relevant that company might be, they couldn't possibly compete. I mean, you might as well be writing your own name in there if you're Sony. So, they understand what this represents and how big a blow it's going to be. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to matter what they say or do now. It seems too far gone. These are obviously the objections that Sony would have raised to any inquiry about, antitrust laws or monopolies. There's been various kind of parliamentary interventions.
I don't think the objective here is to stop the deal. Like, I don't think there's any stopping this deal. This deal is going to go through probably in the next couple of weeks. I think what they are trying to do is make sure that Call of Duty specifically stays multi-platform. I think that's what they're trying to do. I think that's the actual objective here,
Yeah, which is, is the right thing for them to try and do. I don't know whether it'll be down to their kind of appeals for justice that happens. I think that might only happen if Xbox decide that they can get more money doing it that way, essentially. And, Sony might well still have a hand to play in that debate. So, it remains to be seen. But, just a really remarkable thing to see come out from a company like Sony, who particularly are usually very taciturn and don't save very much
exactly
when they don't kind of need to. So it's interesting that it's come out like this. And that last point about the damage that Game Pass could do, that's it's such a fascinating question. I still think we need some proper investigative journalism into how all that works, and all these subscription models now. Let's not just single out Game Pass. It's across the board.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think another point that they were making during that is that Game Pass is just so dominant in the industry right now, and even if someone was to try and be a competitor in that field, which obviously they now are, I don't think that they were when that was written necessarily. They were saying it would be years before that they could truly compete.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, Game Pass is absolutely dominant, and Xbox have pushed it very, very, very fucking hard, and that is why. Yeah, but on the Call of Duty stuff, I mean, obviously it's a massively important game for PlayStation. PlayStation have had close ties to the Call of Duty series for years now as well, and I think the prospect of that just being gone for them is nearly unthinkable, but it could be in 2024. Alright, listen, news item number 4. Star Wars The Old Republic Remake has been delayed indefinitely, it has been reported. This comes after devs Aspyr were not happy with the quality of a recent vertical slice demo, which apparently has also led to the firing of the game's design director and art director. Apparently, the game has been in development for 3 years already, and staff and partners were told that the game would be releasing by the end of 2022, but it seems now that a more realistic target is actually 2025. Embracer, who bought Aspyr last year, announced that Saber would be coming on to help with the project, and in hindsight, maybe that should have been a bigger red flag, a bigger warning sign for us. It seems that some believe now that Saber might take on the project in its totality, but no matter what way you cut it here, Lewis, it doesn't sound good. It looks like we could be staring down the barrel of a complete restart of the project, potentially, but either way, this game is a long, long way away if we end up seeing it at all.
Yeah, I have real doubts about whether we'll ever see this game, or certainly this kind of iteration of it. It's being described as a delay, but this is shelved. This project is off. The teams will be working on other things just now. I think that realistic target of 2025 was before it was delayed as well. That was them evaluating where the project was up to. So factor in however long they might not be actively working on it. I think this might be kicked into the long grass, really. That's not to say we'll never, ever, ever see a KOTOR remake, because it's such a beloved game and a beloved franchise, and obviously within a beloved IP, so you can see that if Embracer can make it happen with another studio, they probably will. But what does it say about Aspyr though? I think I'm right in saying that they were predominantly like a porting studio, and they've tried to take on a massive project like this and it's gone wrong, and that might not be their fault, we should say, but you were saying there Saber might take over. Do we think Aspyr continue beyond this if they've lost some top creative talent as well?
Well, that top creative talent was sacked, so it sounded as if they didn't want that top creative talent necessarily, but I mean, I don't know, it's so hard to say. It's only idle speculation in reality when it comes to that sort of thing. Yes, I think Aspyr were largely known as a port studio, and in fact I believe they were responsible for porting KOTOR, the original KOTOR, to Switch recently, which also I don't think went all that well, if I'm honest. But I would have thought Embracer buying Aspyr, a big part of that would have been the fact that they are making this game. Like, that would have been a big part of the reason why they would have been on the docket to be bought in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So for this not to happen seems unthinkable to me. Do I think Aspyr are going to make this game now? That is seeming quite unlikely, to your point, but I think Saber take it on, someone else take it on. I think that this game ends up being made. Are we going to see it anytime soon? Absolutely not. Will we even see it in 2025? Even that might be too soon, but I think that we do get this game at some stage because they've got partners in place. This was going to be a PlayStation exclusive as well, so Sony were involved. I think that this game gets brought out at some point. I don't think that that's going to be for a long time, though. I think that's the bottom line here, do you know what I mean? And I don't think Aspyr are going to be making it, sadly. It's such a shame as well, because there was such excitement for it, I felt. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never played the original game, but it's beloved, and I think getting a remake was such a big deal for a lot of people, so it's a real shame. It really is. Alright, Lewis, finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout outs. Shout out number 1, first podcast of the month, and that means free games, Lewis. On PlayStation Plus Essentials, you are getting Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Little Nightmares. Nice slate of games there from Sony, I have to say. I think a lot of people will be interested in that. Not doing a huge amount for me, if I'm being totally honest, but a nice slate of games. On Games Pass, you're getting Ghost Recon Wildlands, Shenzhen IO, Turbo Golf Racing, 2 Point Campus, Cooking Simulator, Expeditions Rome, Off-World Trade Company, Midnight Fight Express, and Immortality. And then leaving Game Pass this month is Boyfriend Dungeon, Curse of the Dead Gods, Library Runia, Starmancer, and Train Sim World 2. So there's been better slates on Xbox, but Midnight Fight Express, Lewis, I know you were interested in that.
Yeah, I think not a particularly amazing slate there. Midnight Fight Express, I played the Steam Deck demo. Not the Steam Deck demo, the Steam demo on my Steam Deck, and it was fine. It was decent enough. So interested to see what kind of reaction it gets now. But yeah, Yakuza Like a Dragon, I might give that a shot at some point. You know, just there was enough buzz around that when it came out originally that if they're dishing it out, I might take a look at it.
Turn-based.
Yeah, it sounds like a kind of weird, wacky world that they've built. People seem to really flock to it. I can't imagine, I haven't checked how long it is, but I suspect it's a considerable number of hours, so I don't imagine I'd actually play all of it necessarily, but I'd kind of be intrigued to see what it's all about. I've never played any of the Yakuza games, and I've got a few friends who really swore by some of the older ones, so...
Yeah, I mean, same with me, man. I've never played any of them, and again, people absolutely fucking love them, but none of them do anything for me. It does nothing for me. It really doesn't, but I know that it has a really solid fan base out there, so if you're one of them and you've not played Yakuza Like a Dragon, you can get it on PlayStation now. Alright, shout out number 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has come out this week, and the reviews are overwhelmingly positive, Lewis. Currently sitting with an 89 on Metacritic, and for a long time that was a 90. Basically, no one seems to have a bad thing to say about this game, Lewis. Even some of the reviews that were like an 8 were still being like, oh, this game's absolutely fantastic. 8 out of 10, which they thought was a good mark. But compared to some people that were giving this 10s and 9s, it just doesn't seem that good, you know what I mean? Everyone seems to agree that it's an improvement on the second game. Quite a few people seem to be saying that it's the best in the series. I mean, if you're a fan of that franchise, what else can you ask for? They seem to have absolutely nailed it.
Is this not up your street, Max? You think you'll be playing this at some point?
See, it's one of those ones that sort of, and it should be, and every single time I see it, I'm like, I'll probably just leave that, you know what I mean? But then it gets such good reviews like this, and I'm like, oh, well, will I give it a go? I don't know. It seems like something that I'll never get around to. That's honestly what this series feels like. However, I know that it has its fans. Maybe if I did play it, I would really like it, but for me, right now, it's not something I'm prioritising, I have to be honest.
Fair enough.
Alright, and shout out number 3, MultiVersus is absolutely fucking killing it, Liz.
It is indeed, Mark. Yeah, so this is the new kind of Smash-style brawler featuring the wild characters of the Warner Brothers universe, which goes in all sorts of directions. I mean, there's things that they own.
It's
that
the most bizarre collection of characters I've ever seen in my fucking life.
But you'll have seen this. It's been big over the last few weeks as it's been approaching launch, when they've been revealing characters. It is doing amazing numbers at the moment on Steam. It has possibly topped 5 million players, and had up to 142,000 concurrent players at one point, making it the fourth biggest game on Steam at the point, ahead of games like GTA 5 and Apex. It is dominating so much that it is now had more concurrent players than the following 13 fighting games combined, and that includes games like Brawlhalla, Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, Mortal Kombat 11, Guilty Gear Strive, and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawler.
Wow.
So yeah, that is just to say that this game is still in beta at the moment. It's not officially out, although that is kind of debatable. It has this kind of flurry of different options with which you can essentially pay full price right now. So has it released? Who can say? But reviews are starting to trickle in. It's going down okay. It's sitting at an 81 on Metacritic at the moment, but there's not that many reviews, so we'll see where that goes. But when it was first announced, I think a lot of us thought this is going to be dog shit, and basically weren't really paying much attention to it. And it has now absolutely came flying out of the gates.
It really has. I mean, I am truly, truly shocked that this has turned out to be a thing at all. But as you said, man, it's absolutely killing it. And if it's caught people's attention like that, I mean, whatever the Metacritic score ends up being, to me, for a game like this, it just doesn't fucking matter. Like, if what did you say? 5 million people have played it, and it's like one of the most top played games right now on Steam. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, if that many people are playing, like, who cares what the review scores say? It's obviously made a connection with people. People are obviously enjoying playing it. And, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, if you're having fun playing video games, we're all winning. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The one thing to bear in mind is that it is free to play, and that has led to some suggestions that there might be quite a lot of real-world money to be spent to unlock everything that you can't earn through gameplay. So be careful if you're jumping into it, because it is a free-to-play game and there can be pitfalls there. But I've not heard too many complaints from actual players of it yet.
Warner Brothers also has fucking history.
It does have previous there, yeah. So be careful, but, it sounds like it will be worth jumping into if you're into that style of game.
Yeah, man, we need to get a go. We need to get on the Steam decks, get a wee shot of like Rick and Morty versus Bugs Bunny or something. That's what we need.
I'm going my Adventure Time boys every time.
Oh, there you go then. There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for a beer, and then we'll be back for Topic of the Week. And we are back for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is our play-along of Monument Valley 1 and 2, Lewis.
It is indeed, Mark. Yeah, so this past month we've been playing both the Monument Valley games. What turned out to be for the first time, certainly in the case of the second game, because we both thought that we'd played it before, but I think we both have subsequently realised that we haven't.
Listen, I don't know. Is this a Mandela effect moment here? I was absolutely convinced that I'd played the second game. What I think's happened is that I've maybe played like the first level or two, or maybe I've seen a video of it or something like that. And because it is just so similar in gameplay to the first game, like, I've just assumed that I played it, but I hadn't. Like, I was halfway through the game and I was thinking, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, I was more or less exactly the same. Yeah, I played through all the first game again, and I knew that I'd played that years ago, kind of not long after it first came out, and was playing that, and I was like, yep, kind of remember parts of this, like nothing here is a surprise, and then got into the second game and was just like that sneaking feeling of like, I'm not sure actually, and then as it developed, I was like, yeah, nah, I don't. Even the way that the kind of levels start to split later on in the second game,
sure, like absolutely, exactly. I would have remembered that 100%.
Exactly, yeah. So these two games, developed by Us Two Games, which I'll touch a wee bit on the developers in a minute, but they also developed Assemble with Care, which was an Apple Arcade launch game, which I think we both played as well, which I really enjoyed as well, to be honest. But so they've got a couple of crackers on their books. I guess we should say up front, it's probably quite obvious already that we both like these games, and so frame all our opinions here in that vein, because these are two sensational mobile games, little beautiful puzzle sort of paintings, essentially, manipulable little pieces of art, and that's kind of how the games actually began. They sort of spun out of a desire just to make really high quality looking digital art pieces, essentially, or a game that could easily be displayed in that way. The first game came out in April 2014 after 10 months development, and was just a total sensation. It sold amazingly. It kind of caught the public imagination. It ended up in House of Cards before Kevin Spacey became or was found out to be extremely problematic. There was a whole kind of part of the arc of one series that included Monument Valley, which is just very strange to think about how far we've
for
come.
this little mobile game. Yeah.
And then the second game, Shadow, dropped in June 2017. I think it was actually announced at a sort of an Apple event. Monument Valley feels very synonymous in my head with Apple, and in fact I've been playing these games on Apple Arcade, although they have both just come out on Windows as well just a couple of months ago, so people who have not been playing it on mobile before have been able to jump in on PC recently. So that's Monument Valley, like in a nutshell. These are... Tell me what your overall thoughts are, Mark. Obviously I've said that we both enjoyed them, but what kind of sticks out to you here?
Well, they are, in my opinion, absolutely spectacular games. They are almost the perfectly distilled mobile game. I feel they are just beautiful, beautiful little puzzle games that is very easy to play, one-handed, very simple in reality. I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, it challenges you to think. But in terms of what you're actually doing on the screen, I mean, it's not complex in any manner. But it's just a joy to play in that world, you know what I mean? And just observe what is effectively a colourful Escher painting that you can just manipulate around, and that's what it is. I mean, even narratively it ties in. They call it like the sacred geometry of their world, but it is just the fact that you manipulate the world just by spinning things and turning things, and that sort of makes the perspective on that object change relative to the other objects, and therefore it can connect impossible points on the map, it seems. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably a terrible description, to be honest with you, but look up an Escher painting. It's like that. It's fantastic. I love these games. I absolutely love them. They are so perfect for mobile. Even the music in them is just totally unevasive and just very gentle. There is a narrative there if you want it, if you want to engage with that, but you don't have to. You can just play this as a series of nice, pleasant little puzzles if you wanted to, and they're just gorgeous. The development is fantastic. The level design is fantastic. Like in terms of like actual game theory, I think it's incredibly good. I love it. Absolutely love them. Couldn't give them enough high praise lists, frankly.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, you're very high on it. I mean, I would pretty much agree with it, almost all of that. It's they're just ultimately so playable. I basically replayed both games, or played both games, I suppose, late at night each night, just a level at a time or a couple of levels, just kind of sitting one eye on the TV, one eye on my phone screen as I was playing it, sometimes listening to the in-game music, sometimes just podcasting. It's as chill as that, and the puzzles are never very challenging. I think there's no fail state either. No. You can't be
fail state. It's just trial and error. Just try things out until it works, and the game never instructs you on what to do ever. This is why it's such a well-designed game. It never says this is how this thing moves or this is what you do with this. It's just like, here's a level, work it out.
Yeah.
And you can work it out relatively easily 90% of the time just because of how well the game is designed. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
They are fantastic games.
Yeah, and you get into that kind of flow state with it at times where solutions which might not, on the face of it, seem very obvious. When you're in the rhythm of the game, you do just understand, oh yeah, I'm going to have to go up here and turn this thing and then come back down over it on the other plane, and then I'll be on this angle to go through the door down here. And you almost do it like automatically at times. You just start moving and turning things because the game, as you were sort of hinting at there, I think that the game's visual language is so simple and so elegant and so striking. It'll literally just put a slightly different colour or a little kind of circular symbol on an object that you can move, but like you say, it gives you no instructions about how that thing is going to move or how it's going to affect the game world. So you just instinctively know, here are the 2 or 3 things on this level that I can manipulate. I'll just move them around, and it maintains its kind of beautiful aesthetic all through that. Like, it would be easy to make a game like this that as soon as the player starts interacting with it, it all gets a bit fucked up. But as you pivot things and change things, everything that happens is so gorgeous. Towers rising out of the clouds to kind of meet the part of the map that you're on, and then it all pivots.
Exactly, like
worlds within worlds at times.
There's a clumsy version of this game, like you're saying, that could be messy to the eye. It could be difficult to discern what you're supposed to do, but it's so elegantly executed that that's just never an issue. It's never an issue. Each level is in itself just this like little work of art, as you were saying. Like, I didn't know that about the game, if that was its origin, that they would just literally wanted to make a piece of visual art, and in a lot of ways they have done that just in the form of a video game. Do you know what I mean? That is just a beautiful little thing to look at,
Yeah, but it remains like eminently playable as well. I mean, it's so classic kind of puzzle game in that sense as well. It's like, physical environment manipulation to get from point A to point B, so it's not just that it looks so good, it's very well designed as a game as well. I wanted to pick up on narrative because you mentioned that there as well, and obviously a lot of these play-along games we do focus in on narrative. Here, instead, it feels like it came out of that little patch, maybe around the point that Journey came out as well, where it was like, we're going to invert all that, and it's like, it's about you, and it's about your interpretation of what you're seeing, even though you are playing as a player character, because they're sort of semi-wordless games, really. I mean, certainly there's no voice acting, but the few bits of text that you get are sort of poetic and not, they don't necessarily build towards like a unified picture as such, but certainly the first game is even more impressionistic than the second game. The second game introduces a wee bit more of a clear storyline and two characters, and you understand that there's a relationship between them. But in the first game, you're just this kind of lost princess, and you're just working your way through these environments, and you understand that there's some sort of cosmic backstory to it all, but you're just kind of exploring and working it out. But it still ends in quite a beautiful moment, I thought, the first game.
It really does. The first game particularly does end in a truly beautiful moment, I think. But yeah, I think that it is, I mean, and I go on about it all the time, but it's very much show don't tell. It's not necessarily clear what all the answers are, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. Like, we don't need to have all the answers to enjoy the story that it's trying to tell. And as you said, it's, well, from my interpretation of it, which could be different from anyone else's, is that it is some princess or whatever, some person of high repute that is returned to this place of quote-unquote sacred geometry to sort the place out. That is sort of the impression that you're given, but by the end up, you actually end up questioning that, I think, anyway. But it's great, and it's just delivered in such a subtle way. But even if you don't want to interact with that at all,
you really just don't have to engage at all. Yeah.
As you said, there's very few lines actually written in the game, and each level always says something like, oh, it's like chapter 2, and then the level will have a title, and then it will be like where you learn to fly or something like
in which
that,
the princess discovers a new skill or something. Yeah,
exactly, something like that. So you understand what the game is trying to tell you just from that very simple piece of information that it's giving you. It's not bombarding you with information or exposition or anything like that. It's just simply saying, oh, she's met a friend, which, by the way, the block centipede man or whatever that's in the first game, absolutely great. I have no idea why I love them so much, but there's a bit where you basically think you've destroyed them, and then he comes back, and I was like, yes! I was like, yes! Absolutely awesome, this guy's back. And then he also pops up in the second game as well, and I was like, yeah, he's back again. He's awesome, absolutely great.
I did think his kind of seeming death and then return reminded me quite a bit of like Aggro and Shadow of the Colossus, which this whole game has
absolutely,
a bit of
which is insane
atmosphere.
Because Shadow of the Colossus has got so much more going on, but this simple little puzzle mobile game still managed to capture some of that. You know what I mean? It's amazing. It's a fucking fantastic game. Just because it's on a mobile, you can't discount how good it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just doing something totally different, and I feel as though people will just go, it's just a mobile game, like whatever. But it's fantastic. Like, it's really good. Like, honestly, see if you have a train journey to make in the morning, or a bus journey or something like that, or you have some sort of idle time, you should fill it with something like this. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a great way to spend that amount of time. It's in such digestible, tiny little chunks that you can play it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, and that'd be totally fine. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to play this in like one big block. It's not like a narrative you have to keep up with or anything like that. As we were saying, it's an interesting narrative, but it's incredibly light. It's just such a fantastic mobile game that is just so suited to the platform that it's on, and the game in and of itself is executed so incredibly well and to such a high standard that there's a reason that this is like held up as this is an excellent mobile game. Just because it's an excellent game, it doesn't matter that it's on a mobile. Do you know what I mean? This is just a great game.
I would say it's a fantastic pair of games, but also that it shouldn't be understated that it is so suited to that platform as well, though. You know, I'm sure on PC, and, you know, presumably that will run on the Steam Deck and blah, blah, blah. You know, you'll be able to play it in all sorts of different ways now, but it is so right for a small handheld. You know, that is all you kind of need for it to just swipe around the screen and make the changes happen, kind of thing. I think it is worth saying that it is a phenomenal mobile game. Like, if you have been looking for an example of something to get you hooked on mobile gaming, this is not a bad place to start, because it plays with that format so well. I think it sits so nicely there. So yeah, just totally worth checking out across the board if you haven't before. It is, as you were saying there, Mark, it's a perfect commuting game. It's a perfect like bedtime game when you just kind of need to detune. it's a total stress relief. There's nothing taxing or challenging about it. It's just like a nice warm bath of a video game altogether, you know.
Low intensity, but challenging enough to keep you interested. You know what I mean? You'll never be stuck at a puzzle for more than about, I don't know, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I would dare say. But at the same time, like it's just challenging enough, and the wee bits that each chapter's broken down into are just so digestible. Then it changes again, then it changes again, then you're doing something else. You know what I mean? It's just so well designed that it never feels dull. It always feels as though you're excited to get to the next thing, see the next area, see what other creative way they've decided to build their levels. You know what I mean? It's just fantastic. It's just a fantastic game, and as you said rightly, it is a fantastic mobile game, and it is incredibly well suited to that platform specifically. But beyond that, it's just a great game.
Yeah,
it's
it
just a
stands
great
on its
game.
own,
It doesn't
absolutely,
matter
yeah.
that it's on a mobile or you're playing it on Steam or whatever. It's just a really good game. Like, end of story. Two good games, in fact. Two good games. I keep on talking about them as if it's one homogenous block. And I do sort of think that if you play Monument Valley 1, you have to play Monument Valley 2. That would be crazy not to now in my mind. But yeah, I mean, these are two games. And the second one is just more Monument Valley, but with slightly tweaked mechanics and stuff like that. Again, just to keep it interesting, just to keep you engaged with it. And there's two characters as well that you control at certain points. It's really good as well. It was a great evolution of the original formula as well. It was a great way to make it more Monument Valley, which I think is basically what everyone wanted, but to make it feel fresh enough as well, you know?
Yeah, and just to kind of add some extra flavour to it, because you do get more of the world design and more of the puzzles feel connected to what's happening in the action, and that there's points where the kind of presumably mother and daughter are like separated from each other and everything looks a wee bit different in those points, and then they have some really touching kind of reunion moments, and that's reflected in the art style more than where in the first game it just felt like they had, say, 15 illustrations of beautiful kind of weird Escher style cities and they just built a game around that. This one feels more like they went, okay, this is our game, here's how we're going to reflect that in those beautiful Escher style paintings. You know, it sort of feels like a slightly reversed process, which is great. And you've actually led me on to one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Mark. Maybe we should just finish up here, but there has been talk of a third game. I think it's been kind of softly announced, but has not been seen or heard of in quite a few years. And obviously they did just bring out this PC port, which, I don't know, maybe hints that something could be coming in the not too distant future. How do you keep Monument Valley 3 sort of fresh and interesting? Because they could easily just do more of the same, but it's been, 5 years already since the second game came out, so, you know, maybe it needs
Has
to...
it? Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure us two games do. I have complete confidence that if they bring out a Monument Valley 3, it will be fantastic, and I will very much enjoy playing it. I honestly don't know. I think what they did with 2 was interesting. They introduced another character. Maybe you do that again. Maybe you introduce a character that is maybe capable of different things, can do something else mechanically in the world. You know what I mean? Keep the sort of simple mechanics of the world the same. You know what I mean? But even then, the second game introduced sort of different, like, ways to move around the world that were slightly different from the first game. Again, just keeping it fresh, but unreservedly more Monument Valley. Do you know what I mean? The thing is that if it came out and it was just more Monument Valley, like it was just Monument Valley 2 and it was just the same two characters and they just kept on doing the same stuff and it was just more of the same basically, I'd be happy with that game list. Like I would not be annoyed about that in the slightest. However, yeah, talking about making it fresh, talking about the fact that we're now 5 years down the line, unfortunately I still feel as though 5 years down the line from Monument Valley 2, Monument Valley is still at the front of the pack in terms of the best mobile games ever made.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be anyone else out there. Well, no, that's not true. I'm sure there definitely are. I'm just unaware. But to really break through into sort of mainstream gaming like Monument Valley did, like everyone knows fucking Monument Valley, do you know what I mean? I don't really think that there's been a lot like that in the mobile space. So whatever they're doing is fine. Like, they don't need to shake up the formula. They're still fucking nailing it. It's everyone else has to catch up to them still, as far as I'm concerned. You know?
I think that's a really strong point, because it does feel like those games came out and really caught people's attention, and it feels like because they're possibly made with the intention of looking good on a modern phone screen, you know what I mean? And at that, when you think about it, when the first game came out in 2014, you know, it was like the evolution of the iPhone or whatever at that point, and you make a game that just looks phenomenal on there and it really kind of catches attention. And you could go into a sequel here and make it bigger and much more expansive and have kind of massive worlds or whatever. But I think you're right. Like, keep it simple. Just make more levels like this. Make a game that's double the length, maybe, or release more content over time or whatever. But they definitely know what they're doing, and they don't have too many like notes to improve on from these two games, which is a pretty remarkable thing.
Well, that's the thing. Like, they've just done a very simple concept. They've made a very simple game, and they've just executed it to such an incredibly high standard. They've got the fundamentals so solidly nailed down in terms of their level design and their mechanics and stuff like that. It's sort of like, well, how do you improve on this? Because it's great the way it is. Like, you totally fucking nailed it just from the very start. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's difficult to say, like, how do you keep Monument Valley fresh in the year of our Lord 2022 or whenever the game ends up coming out, and I really don't know. And I think, as you were saying, I think that this port to Steam maybe does speak to the fact that they do want to bring out another game, and maybe when it launches it will come out on iOS and Android and on Steam, you know. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, Lewis, but I am very, 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 very excited to find out, frankly, because honestly, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a phone right now, these games are not expensive at all. They're a few quid each. They are a fantastic way to spend a couple of hours on your phone, frankly. Certainly better than fucking doom scrolling on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll have to call it a day there. I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That is Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find your written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerSToo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really, really helps us out. There's a huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a little review as well, again, that just helps us out even more. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. Alright, time to announce a new PlayAlong game, Lewis, and in fact it's 2 more games. It's 2 more games again, just back-to-back games all the time, Lewis. So we said a while back that we would choose 2 games from itch.io's Abortion Fund bundle, and that is exactly what we're doing. We have chosen the Enigma machine and The Floor is Jelly, which looks so much better than that name makes it out to be. Obviously, if you've missed out on the bundle or you couldn't give to that particular cause or whatever, these games are also available on Steam if you would rather play them there. Lewis, I think these 2 games look fantastic, and like the Black Iris, Welcome to Elk, Sagebrush and The White Door, the games that we've done for the Ukraine bundle, just really interesting and something that you can do in the indie scene that you can't do on the AAA scene, do you know what I mean? Which is why these games are so interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's 2 really sort of inventive looking and totally different games this time. So the Enigma machine is a slightly kind of spooky, scary looking adventure, sort of narrative adventure into an AI. Who knows what's going on there? It looks kind of spooky. And The Floor is Jelly looks like a really daft but crazy fun sort of platformer. Quick movement, loads of bouncing. These 2 games really couldn't look too dissimilar from one another, but again, just like not that similar to some of the other games we've been playing from these bundles recently as well. So it shows you the kind of strength and breadth of games available on itch generally, but through these bundles in particular. And both games are playable within about 5 hours in total combined, so that's good. Exactly, that's why we were playing both of these games together in the same month, because they're both really short experiences, and a lot of the people on itch have very little budget or no budget at all, and they're just doing it off their own back. Do you know what I mean? So that's why they are the length that they are, but nonetheless a lot of interesting concepts within them, and these are 2 games that I'm very excited to play with. Yeah, me too. Really looking forward to them. 2 games that I knew nothing about before we started exploring these bundles, and I'm not sure where to start. Actually, I'm not sure which one I'm going to do first, but I'm looking forward to getting stuck into both of them. Definitely, man, definitely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. Thanks.